I own 2,400 acres in rural Colorado. The land has been in my family since 1972. My grandfather bought it from a homesteader who couldn't make it through the winter. He paid $27,000 cash. He drove out from Kansas with a U-Haul trailer, a pregnant wife, and a dream. The land is beautiful. Rolling hills, a creek that runs year-round, the Rocky Mountains in the distance, cattle grazing in the pastures, eagles nesting in the cottonwoods. The kind of place where you can sit on the porch and not see another human for days. I inherited it from my father in 2005. He was a quiet man. He didn't talk much, but he loved that land more than anything. He would walk the property line every Sunday, just to make sure no one had crossed it. He made me promise one thing before he died. "Don't let anyone take what's ours," he said. "It's been in the family for 3 generations. It stays in the family." I promised him, and I kept that promise, but I never imagined the threat would come from an HOA. About 15 years ago, a developer bought the land adjacent to my property, 400 acres of hayfields and prairie dog towns. He built a planned community called Cedar Ridge Estates, 400 homes, manicured lawns, paved streets, a clubhouse with a pool, a pickleball court. The residents moved in from California, Texas, New York. They came for the mountains, the open space, the promise of a simpler life. They didn't know that the only road in and out of their neighborhood crossed my land. The developer built a wooden bridge over the creek. He connected his paved streets to my gravel road. He never asked permission, he never bought an easement, he just assumed. He assumed that no one would notice. He assumed that no one would care. He assumed wrong. The bridge is a simple structure, wooden planks, steel beams, a gravel approach on my side, paved on theirs. It crosses a creek that flows from my spring-fed pond down to the river. My grandfather built the original crossing in 1975, a concrete culvert covered with gravel. The developer replaced it with the wooden bridge without asking. He said it was an improvement. He said it would benefit both properties. He never offered to pay for it. He never offered to share maintenance. He just built it, and then he sold houses with the promise of private access to scenic country roads. The roads were mine. The access was mine. The bridge was mine. They just didn't know it yet. For 15 years, the HOA used my bridge like it was theirs. Commuters drove across it twice a day. School buses crossed it every morning and afternoon. Delivery trucks, mail trucks, Amazon vans, pizza delivery, grocery delivery. Nobody asked. Nobody thanked. Nobody even waved most days. I didn't mind, not at first. I believed in being a good neighbor. The road was there, the bridge was there. It didn't cost me anything to let them use it. I was naive. The trouble started 3 years ago. I received a letter from the Cedar Ridge Estates HOA. Cream paper, gold foil logo, the signature of Madam President, a woman named Linda Caraway. The letter informed me that my cattle were aesthetically non-compliant with community standards. My cattle, grazing on my land, a quarter mile from the nearest house, were unsightly. I read the letter twice, then I laughed. I called the HOA office. Linda answered. I explained that my cattle were on my property, that the HOA had new jurisdiction over my land, that she could not fine me for anything. She said the board disagreed. She said the community's aesthetic zone extended to the bridge. She said my cattle were visible from common areas. She said I had 30 days to remove them or face fines. I told her to send the evidence. She hung up. The fines started a week later, $50 a day, then $100, then $200. They claimed I owed over $5,000 by the end of the first month. I didn't pay. I didn't respond. I just watched. The violations kept coming. My fence was non-conforming. My gate was aesthetically inconsistent. My tractor was an eyesore. My dogs barked too loud. Each notice was signed by Linda Caraway. Each one was more aggressive than the last. Each one was ignored. I decided to do some research. I drove to the county recorder's office. It's a 45-minute drive from the ranch. The office is in the basement of the old courthouse. Fluorescent lights, gray metal cabinets, the smell of old paper and dust. I requested the original subdivision plat for Cedar Ridge Estates. I requested the easement documents. I requested the deed transfers. I requested everything. The clerk brought me 3 boxes of files. I spent 6 hours at a folding table, reading every page. I found the original survey from 2008. It showed the property lines clearly. My land, the developer's land, the creek between them.
There was no easement, no recorded agreement, no right of access. The developer had simply built the bridge and assumed no one would notice. I found the water rights from 1975, my grandfather's name. The creek was his, the water was his, the land under the bridge was his. I found the bridge permit from 2009. The developer had applied for a permit to build a private bridge on private property. He had listed himself as the owner. He had lied. I photocopied everything. I put the copies in a folder. I drove home with the sun setting behind me. I hired an attorney named Sarah Klein. She specialized in property disputes and easement law. Her office was in a converted Victorian house in the county seat. It smelled like old books and justice. I laid out the documents on her conference table: the survey, the deed, the water rights, the bridge permit, the violation notices. She read for an hour. Then she looked up at me. "Mr. Maddox," she said, "the HOA has been using your land for 15 years without permission. They have no easement, no agreement, no rights whatsoever. The bridge is yours, the road is yours, the creek is yours." "Can we fight them?" I asked. "We don't need to fight them," she said. "We need to inform them, and then we need to negotiate." Sarah drafted a letter. It was 5 pages long. It cited the property laws, it cited the lack of easement, it cited the illegal fines. She included copies of the survey, the deed, the water rights, the bridge permit, the violation notices. She sent it certified mail, return receipt requested. Linda Caraway signed for it on a Tuesday. She did not respond. The fines continued. The violations continued. Linda started driving past my gate, slowly, her white Lexus creeping down the gravel road. She would stop and take photographs. She would sit there, watching, waiting. I started keeping a log. Date, time, duration, license plate. The log filled up quickly. Soon I needed a second notebook. Then came the drones. Small ones at first, cheap consumer models. They would hover over my cattle, over my house, over my land. The buzzing was constant. The invasion was constant. I called the sheriff. Deputy Miller came out. He said there wasn't much he could do. "Drones are legal in Colorado airspace," I said. "Harassment is not," I said. "That's a civil matter," he said. "Talk to your lawyer." I talked to Sarah. Sarah laid out the plan. First, we would document everything. Every fine, every letter, every drone flight, every drive-by. Second, we would file a quiet title action to confirm my ownership of the bridge and road. Third, we would demand the HOA cease all harassment. "Once the quiet title is granted," she said, "the HOA will have no legal right to use the bridge at all. They will be trespassing. Every car, every school bus, every mail truck." "What happens then?" I asked. "Then we negotiate," she said, "on our terms." Sarah filed the quiet title action on a Friday afternoon. The case number was CV 2024-1842. The defendant was Cedar Ridge Estates HOA and Stonebridge Properties. The lawsuit asked the court to declare that I owned the bridge, that I owned the road, that the HOA had no easement, that every fine they had issued was void. The HOA had 30 days to respond. The HOA hired an attorney, a man named Bartholomew Keene. Expensive suit, expensive watch, expensive cologne. He filed a response denying everything. He claimed there was an implied easement based on 15 years of use. He claimed the developer had verbal permission from my father. He claimed the fines were reasonable enforcement of community standards. Sarah laughed when she read it. "Implied easement requires 21 years in Colorado," she said. "They have 15, and there is no evidence of verbal permission." "He's lying," I said. "He's grasping," she said. "Let him." The discovery phase began. Both sides exchanged evidence. The HOA produced thousands of pages: financial records, meeting minutes, emails, letters. We found what we were looking for: an email from Linda Caraway to the HOA board, dated 3 years ago. Subject: bridge access. The developer never secured an easement for the bridge. We have been using it without permission for 12 years. The current owner is a rancher who keeps to himself. He is unlikely to challenge us. I recommend we continue using the bridge and ignore the issue. She had known. She had known all along, and she had chosen to do nothing. The court ordered mediation. The mediator was a retired judge named Margaret Holloway. She had been on the bench for 22 years. She was not easily impressed. The mediation was held in a conference room in Denver. Long table, water pitchers, fluorescent lights. Linda Caraway was there. She wore her cream blazer. She looked uncomfortable. Keene was there. Expensive briefcase, expensive cologne. I was there with Sarah. Judge Holloway started with Keene. "Mr. Keene, does your client have an easement?" Keene shuffled his papers. "There is an implied easement based on historical use." "Historical use for how many years?" 15. "Implied easement requires 21 years in Colorado. Do you have 21 years?" Keene was silent. Judge Holloway turned to Sarah. "Miss Klein, what does your client want?" I looked at me. I nodded. "My client wants the quiet title granted. The bridge is his, the road is his, the HOA has no rights, every fine is void, and we want the HOA to pay any legal fees." Keene offered to drop the fines. He offered to pay for a new survey. He offered to negotiate a reasonable access agreement. Sarah rejected everything. "Your client has been trespassing for 15 years, she said. "They have been harassing my client for 3 years. They have issued thousands of dollars in illegal fines. This is not a negotiation. This is a reckoning." Linda spoke for the first time. "What do you want?" I looked at her. "I want you to understand that you have no power here. The bridge is mine, the road is mine. You use it because I allow it, and I am tired of allowing it." Her face went pale. I didn't wait for the court to rule. I drove down to the bridge that evening. The sun was setting, the mountains were purple. The creek was running high. I parked my truck, I walked to the bridge, I pulled a heavy chain from the bed of my truck. I wrapped it around the gate. I secured it with a padlock. I hung a sign on the chain. Private property, no trespassing, by order of the property owner. Then I drove home. The next morning, my phone started ringing at 6 a.m. Linda Caraway, then the HOA board members, then the residents. Dozens of calls, dozens of voicemails, dozens of threats. I didn't answer. I let them ring. The school bus arrived at the bridge at 7:15 a.m. It stopped. The driver got out. She walked to the gate. She read the sign. She called her supervisor. The mail truck arrived at 9 a.m., the Amazon van at 10 a.m., the delivery trucks all morning. One by one, they turned around. By noon, there was a line of cars stretched back from the bridge. Residents standing beside their vehicles, frustrated, angry, trapped. Linda called me at 1 p.m. Her voice was shaking. Mr. Maddox, you need to open the bridge. There are children who need to get home from school. There are people who need to get to work. You should have thought about that before you started finding me, I said. You should have thought about that before you sent the drones. You should have thought about that before you harassed me for 3 years. The fines were a mistake, she said. We'll drop them. Just open the bridge. The fines are void. That's not a concession. That's the law. What do you want? I want you to read your deed. I want you to understand that you have no rights here. I want you to realize that the only reason you are not trespassing right now is that I haven't called the sheriff. She was silent for a long moment. I can have the board meet tonight, she said. You do that, I said. And when you're ready to negotiate in good faith, call my lawyer. I hung up. The board met that evening in the community center. The room was packed. Angry residents shouted at Linda, demanded answers, demanded action. Linda read the deed for the first time. She read the survey, the quiet title complaint. She realized the truth. They had no rights. They never had. The board voted